Bruce Feldman from The Athletic, Fox Sports college football analyst, right here on the Rich Eisen Show, fresh off of watching Oklahoma defeat Oklahoma State. You know what I'm saying, Bruce? Are we going to see more and more of that, you think, this time around? With kids deciding to sit out games that aren't in the college football playoff?
I would think so. Look, it's obviously a personal decision, but I think that, you see all these injuries that happen, and there's enough track record, and there's enough people in players' ears to talk about business decisions that I think it's bound to happen. It's just, I think, that expression, the toothpaste is already out of the tube. And I think that, at some point, I don't know if we'll get to where it would be a kid sitting out a playoff game, but the bowl games are exhibitions, and I just think it's going to happen.
Well, I mean, it's all exhibition. Even you could say college football playoff. Obviously, that means something for schools and pride and college football and history books. But I mean, they're still not getting paid. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to be sitting here as somebody who has someone like you, Bruce Feldman, on this show, and this show, this segment will be making cash for the television and radio networks that air it. I'm not going to sit here and say these kids should play when that's not going to pay the bills 5-10 years from now. So I'm that's why I'm like, at least if kids are going to want to play in games that there's college football playoffs, we should have more than just the 4.
Yeah, look, I would be definitely open for a lot of reasons to 8. Now, look, if you expand it to 8, on the flip side of the argument you're going to have is that's more games for them to play, and that's more injury risk. So, look, you're right. The TV networks are making a fortune off of this, and you and I both work in TV, and so that's tied to our livelihoods and whatnot. Whereas I think the hard part, I think, especially for a lot of people when they talk about whether a player is going to play or not, or the risks that are involved, is also, they're part of these teams, and they have relationships with their teammates, never mind the coaches, but with their teammates and all they go through to get to that point, to try to reach the playoff and to try to win championships. And so I think, nothing happens in a vacuum in that regard. So I think that's the part where, I think people, it's hard to be critical of them for that, because it's their own futures that we're talking about. And so I think, people had said Jalen Smith is one of the more prominent cases of a star player getting injured in a bowl game, and it wasn't a playoff game. And I think Jalen Smith's on record as saying, he, knowing what he knows, he would still do it again, even though it bumped him out of the first round.
Bruce Feldman here on the Rich Eisen Show, and just spending one more question on this right here. Look, in the NFL, we're through 12 games. There's not a single team in the NFL with one loss, not a single one. Okay, and I know it's professional football, and that might be different, but even teams with 2 losses are the Patriots, the Ravens, the 49ers, the Saints. They all have a shot to win it all, and they're not eliminated just because they lost a second game. Teams like Alabama, eliminated. Florida, Penn State, Auburn, eliminated because they've dared to lose a second game. And even a team like, say, Oregon, they're gone too because they lost a second game. Is there no sense at all in a college football playoff committee and coaches and presidents who know how tough it is to win, and clearly coaches on the hot seat, isn't there any sense of saying, okay, it might make the regular season a little bit less do or die, but at least it gives us a Cinderella story, a reason to keep playing? I mean, don't you think 8 teams is the better way to try and at least make it more realistic?
I think 8 teams is the better way. Look, I feel like that. I feel like you have 5 power conferences, and there's only 4 spots right now. That doesn't even include if you had, like you did last year, UCF go on this roll, and they're a group of 5 school. I think we can separate those 2 issues a little bit. The concern you would get from some college football purists is college football has the best regular season, I would argue, of any of the sports, because there is so much more on each game. There's been years where you had teams that lose 6 or 7 games go to a Super Bowl. That can't happen in college football. So, look, I don't think you're going to have a case where if you have 8 teams, you get an 8-4 team in there. But what you're talking about now, like right now, I'm not sure Alabama would be in that 8 teams. I mean, if you took Alabama where they are, I mean, their resume their best win right now is over a 7-5 Texas A&M team that just got beat by 43 points. So I think for people looking at it and going, okay, it would feel like a little bit of a mix between what they have now and March Madness, where it's not the true 1 versus 16 matchup, but you would have big underdogs in that 8 spot, especially if there was a team from a group of 5 in there. I think what they need to really figure out is how they work out the calendar to it because of a class schedule, and also just in terms of you're adding a game onto the players' health risks, if you want to say it as just as bluntly as that. I think that's the part that they need to figure out. But I do think the playoff will be better at 8 than it is right now at 4.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live, or download the Rich Eisen Show app.